November 20, 1944. The surface of the Philippine Sea was relatively calm. Beneath the waves, the Japanese submarine F-47 cut through the water, towing 4 secret weapons. This wasn't an ordinary mission. Everyone on board knew that most who went out wouldn't come back. Narawa Nishiki sat in the cramped cabin, staring at the urn beside him. Inside was the ashes of his closest friend, Hiroshi Kuramoku. The captain's orders had been brief. The target area was reached. He lifted the urn like it was the last remnant of hope, stepping carefully along the passageway toward the deck. Above him, the hatch had already been opened. What lay outside was not a safe path, but the very torpedo he had helped design himself. The Kaiten was supposed to turn the tide of the war. But those who actually had to write it knew the truth. It was more like a steel coffin with a motor. Nishiki climbed into the cockpit without hesitation. He first secured the urn, then checked every gauge, valve, and lever. Every line, every component had been painstakingly refined by him and Kuramoku. Now it was up to the designer himself to test whether this device could sink an enemy ship, and take himself along with it. The mission's target, Uliasai Atoll, where U.S. warships were anchored. The captain reported over the phone, 4.5 miles ahead, the enemy fleet sat motionless. 4 Kaitens detached from the mother submarine, propelled by crude automatic controls toward their designated coordinates. Their guidance was rough, but their speed left no room for doubt. At the time, they were arguably the fastest man-made submersibles in the world. The plan was for each Kaiten to approach from a different angle, then raise its periscope at half a mile out to make final course adjustments. Nishiki raised his periscope and several U.S. ships came into view. Anchored warships looked like unmoving targets. He quickly picked the largest one and started to accelerate. Then, disaster struck one of the other Kaitens. One ran aground on a shoal, and the water erupted with a deafening explosion. The blast alerted the Americans. Sailors rushed to the decks, scanning the water, but couldn't see anything clearly. Nishiki knew shallow waters were prone to problems. He cautiously maneuvered around hazards, lowering his periscope and creeping forward almost blindly. Soon, another Kaiten was hit by depth charges. Distant thuds filled the water. The U.S. forces went fully on alert. Raising his periscope again, Nishiki refocused on his target. The massive ship in the viewfinder became clearer, the U.S. troop transport Mississiniua. He steadied his controls, aimed at the ship's center, and pressed on. A third Kaiten failed to reach its target. It was entangled in torpedo nets and began smoking under strain. The Americans finally spotted it and opened fire on the protruding periscope, shattering the fragile sub into pieces. Nishiki pressed closer. The target was right ahead. All he could do now was pray that no one saw him. The Kaiten surged forward, water rushed past its hull. Distance closed inch by inch. Just before impact, Nishiki glanced at the urn. Memories flashed back, news that had changed his fate 2 years earlier. June 1942. The true outcome of the Battle of Midway reached the Japanese Navy. Japan hadn't achieved a stalemate, it suffered a devastating defeat. 6 fleet carriers were lost in a single battle, and countless elite pilots gone. The advantages accumulated since the start of the war were all but exhausted, while U.S. industrial capacity and manpower continued to grow steadily. It was in this increasingly desperate context that Nishiki met Hiroshi Kuramoku during mini-submarine training. The original idea of the small submersible was to sneak in, launch a torpedo, and slip away. But with increasingly advanced U.S. sonar, the subs were little more than underwater coffins, and torpedoes were hard to aim. Many missions ended in failure. If survival was unlikely anyway, they reasoned, at least they could try to drag an enemy ship down with them. The idea gradually took shape in their minds, to convert the mini-submarine into a manned torpedo, a suicide weapon. They drafted schematics, but initially, the higher-ups refused to consider it. Only after they resubmitted the application in blood did the plan get noticed. The Navy gave tentative approval but insisted on providing an escape option for the pilot. Nishiki and Kuramoku quickly abandoned that notion, it was too complex and unreliable. The Kaiten they built was nearly 15 meters long, over 1 meter in diameter, weighing 8 tons. It had only a single forward periscope, a gyroscope, and rudimentary controls. Its purpose, deliver 1.5 tons of explosives to the target and explode with pilot and vessel. Many volunteered, few survived. There was no complete manual. Designers and trainees learned by trial and error, sacrificing lives to fix technical flaws. Kuramoku had died in the harshest trial. The seas were rough, Nishiki begged him not to dive. Koromoku insisted that the real battlefield would be even worse. During training, the Kaiten sank uncontrollably to the seabed. Koromoku fought to regain control, but the sub became his underwater prison. Escape hatches, required by the Navy, couldn't be opened at that depth. He tried releasing compressed air bubbles to signal the surface, but wind and waves swallowed every signal. With no options left, Koromoku calmly wrote an incident report, taking full responsibility, noting that Nishiki's warnings were correct. He included pledges of loyalty to the Emperor and Navy, and finished with a traditional death poem. 10 hours later, the crew recovered the sub. Koromoku had died from asphyxiation at only 22 years old. This devastated Nishiki. He had expected to die alongside his friend but was left to continue alone. When the crew was finally deemed ready for combat, the first operational mission was set for November 20, 1944. Shortly before departure, the Navy held a farewell ceremony for the first 12 attack crew, Nishiki among them. During the ceremony, they gave speeches as if attending their own funerals. Nishiki declared he would carry Koromoku's ashes aboard Kaiten No. 1, fulfilling their pact to strike an enemy ship together. The next morning, the pilots boarded the mother submarine that would transport them. The crew treated them with solemn reverence, even gifting a painting depicting the Kaiten sinking A.U.'s ship, to be presented to the Emperor if the mission succeeded. Once underway, reality quickly replaced ceremonial bravado. Clamps released, communication lines severed, Nishiki gripped the controls and surged forward. Underwater, explosions erupted, he could tell the others had already been lost. No one could turn back to help. He rose to periscope depth, pushed full speed ahead, unaware he was now the only Kaiten still alive and operational that day. While the Americans searched with binoculars, he had already retracted his periscope and raced along the final course at 30 knots, the hull trembling under speed. The engine and water noise filled the cabin, yet he heard nothing. All that remained in his mind, finally, he could take his friend along and finish this journey together. Seconds later, the Kaiten struck the Mississiniua's hull. The warhead detonated instantly. A massive fireball tore through the ship. The vessel was nearly split in two. Fuel and gas reserves exploded in succession, illuminating the entire anchorage. The ship quickly went out of control, caught fire, and sank. 63 U.S. soldiers perished in the flames and water. Japanese observers at a distance assumed all 4 Kaitens had succeeded and reported greatly exaggerated results. This misjudgment led the Navy to commit even more Kaitens, though later successes were rare. Ultimately, 106 young men died operating this weapon. According to U.S. records, only 3 hits truly struck their intended targets.